heart can change your breathing rhythm as well as your heartbeat. Two important components of the body are together called the cardiovascular system because they are interdependent. When the body needs extra oxygen, the heart rate goes up. In order to make the lungs pump faster, you have to stimulate the muscles of the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. That's done by the brain. In an emergency, say you're running because a tiger is chasing you and you're close to exhaustion, the adrenal glands will throw out adrenaline to give the heart an extra boost so that the lungs can breathe a bit faster for a short time. That's equivalent to the capacitor in electronic gadgets which I mentioned. Nature has given us this ability to escape from dangerous situations. This extra stimulation activates the adrenal gland, which pumps adrenaline into the bloodstream so that the heart gets a fast kick for a short time so that it can pump more oxygen to the muscles. Let us try to understand the cardiovascular system to see how the heart rate and the breathing are interconnected. There is a gadget called the polygraph or lie detector. Just as EEG tests the brain waves, the polygraph measures the three basic components mostly connected to the autonomous nervous system, a system which is basically not under our control. Generally speaking, the autonomous nervous system is beyond our control, but yogis can control it. In the polygraph, the three basic components are: one is to demonstrate and measure your breathing pattern, how many cycles per second you're breathing. Normally, we breathe 16 times per minute. Second is the pulse rate, normally about 75 or 80 per minute. Third is the galvanic skin response. Under our sweat glands, there are nerves which carry sensory impulses. Because the galvanic skin response, also known as GSR, is measured as coming from the sweat gland, will change according to your thought. It is one of the three basic components in a polygraph. When you check for GSR by putting small electrodes on the tip of the finger, for example, you can take this current coming out and amplify it so that you can see its pattern. That is also under the autonomous nervous system. The polygraph technician also connects an elastic type of material from your chest to the polygraph so that you can see the number of times you're breathing or what your breathing pattern is: shallow, long, or disturbed. With normal breathing, we inhale about 1500 cc of air and exhale out the same amount very gently. But when you're breathing deeply, you can take in and out about 2000 cc. At that time, the impulse will be very strong. When you're mentally disturbed, the breathing pattern will also change. When all these components are connected to the polygraph, we observe three kinds of waves: breathing pattern, blood pressure, and galvanic skin resistance. After 2 or 3 minutes, there is a normal reading. If suddenly the polygraph changes, it is an indication that the person has lied. An emotional upset will cause the breathing pattern to change from, say, 16 times per minute to 25 or 30 times per minute. It can go up or down. In extreme cases, the breathing or the heart may even stop, as in the case of shock or some bad news. Also good news, something very exciting, say you won $5 million in a lottery, that could stop the heart also. In such cases, you're overloading your capacitor. Within a brief time, everything is short-circuited. The voltage comes through the nerves, becomes so powerful that it just short-circuits everything. The heart or lungs stops and there is a collapse. So you see that your body is not different from an electronic mechanism. The electronic impulse in our body is the prana. This prana comes to the nervous system where it is stored by condensers and transformed by transformers. There are 5 basic types of prana. Prana, Apana, Udana, Samana and Vyana, as well as some minor pranas. The difference between major and minor pranas lying in the voltage. Even in electronic gadgets, some things need higher voltage, so there are different types of transformers. In the body, we call these transformers as chakras. Various nerves come and go through the chakras. They are not physical nerves but astral. In the physical body, the places where these nerves gather at the spinal cord are called the plexuses. They are a kind of junction like a telephone exchange. These plexuses correspond to chakras. This is where the energy is stored up like a condenser, altered like a transformer, and acted upon by resistors. All these things take place in the same area. In most people, the transformers, their upper chakras, are not completely opened up. Maybe for highly advanced students, they are partially opened. Or if there is a tremendous amount of impurity, it acts as a resistor. These variable resistors are automatically controlled by your thought as well as your diet. Everything is controlled by thought. According to the nature of your thought, your impurities will increase or decrease. For each of these three gadgets in your system, condenser, transformer, resistor, all are controlled by your mind. So, yogis go directly to the mind to change the pattern. According to the nature of the pattern of your thought, the voltage will be increased or reduced. If the voltage increases, then the energy goes to a higher chakra. If you reduce the voltage, make your thought very gross with only sensual and sexual thoughts, then the energy goes into the lower chakras because the voltage is not sufficient to lift to the higher chakras. Remember that neither thought nor prana are in the physical body. They are in the astral body, and according to the nature of your thought, the prana flows in the physical body. When your thought is very gross, then the prana or electrons coming to the physical body will be lessened since there is too much resistance. Also, a physical nerve cannot take a high powerful thought, so there may be a shutdown of the prana to a certain extent. The nervous system, which is impure, cannot transmit high voltage. Sometimes a sudden shock to the mind will even shut off the flow of prana. Sometimes this current is slowed down to such an extent that you are like a living corpse. Then you are in coma. Coming to bandhas and mudras, bandhas are locks. They lock the prana in a certain area. Mudras are seals. They seal certain things and cause the energy to flow in only one direction instead of alternately. Again, we have to go back to electronics to understand these changes. You all now understand about resistance. Another thing to consider is alternating current AC and direct current DC. The light bulbs in our homes work off alternating current because the positive and negative poles change as the dynamo rotates. On the other hand, direct current, such as the current from a battery, will light such gadgets as a flashlight. With DC, the flow of electrons is not alternating. It comes in steady streams. When we apply the seals, that is mudras, and locks, the bandhas, we are allowing the electrons to flow in only one direction, not alternately, and we are stopping the afferent and efferent currents, the motor and sensory impulses. In this way, the normal pattern of energy throughout the nervous system is altered. Through bandhas, mudras, and pranayama, we control the sensory and motor nerves. If you regularly practice the above with the purification of the nadis, then the energy will flow through only one channel, that is the sushumna, like direct current. This gives a high voltage, less resistance, and more capacitance. When you have all this put together in an electronic component such as the electronic flash, the capacitor is charged and voltage builds up until there is an intense discharge of bright light for a fraction of a second. Too much resistance will cause everything to blow up because the flow through that wire must be sufficient to accommodate all those electrons. So, we must remember the concepts of resistance, a built-up of voltage and eventual discharge. This also happens in our sexual experience. The capacitors are charged from thoughts and passion and then in the sexual climax.